Thank you. We'll move to question time. Senator Hume.
Madam President, my question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Minister, on this final sitting day of Parliament's budget session, interest rates remain at a 12-year high, now for the 8th straight month, with no relief in sight. Core inflation is on the rise again at 4.4%, with the cost of rent up 7.4%, food up 3.3%, housing up 5.2%, electricity up 6.5% and insurance up 14%. There are 1.5 million mortgage holders now considered at risk of mortgage stress, having to dedicate more than 30% of their pre-tax income to repayments. Eminent economist Warwick McGibbon noted that the budget's consumer price index suppression was nothing more than a political trick, and Brendan Rynne said any inflation reduction is simply smoke and mirrors. Minister, how much worse is it going to get for Australians because of the Prime Minister's failed economic plan?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Hume for a question on the economy and cost of living. And what I would say to her is we are very seized as a government of the cost of living pressures that Australians are facing. We know how tough so many Australians are doing, and that is why the budget that we brought down had cost of living relief as its #1 priority. And the senator, well, I would remind the senator might like to remember some of that cost of living relief. A tax cut for every Australian taxpayer. $300 of energy bill relief for every Australian household. A freeze on the cost of PBS medicines for every Australian. A third consecutive pay rise for 2.6 million workers. More funding to build homes in every part of Australia. An increase to paid parental leave, taking it to 22 weeks, and that's on top of what we have already delivered through past budgets, which is cheaper childcare, HECS release for everyone with student debt, fee-free take, and the biggest investment ever in expanding bulk debt. In contrast, what you are offering, Senator, is Senator McKim's policy on the supermarket sector. That is what the coalition is offering. That is your only positive offering, is Senator McKim's policy on the supermarket sector. In relation to cost of living relief, most of the list that I have outlined you have opposed. You have opposed. So everyone will know when you come in here talking about cost of living, what your record shows is a complete disinterest except for political gain.
Senator Hume, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. 6 financial market economists from Citi, Deutsche, Judo Bank, Morgan Stanley, Rabobank and UBS now expect the RBA to hike its cash rate target by 25 basis points to 4.6% before Parliament returns in August. Why is the Albanese government's plan fuelling inflation and driving up interest rates, making life harder for Australians that are already doing it tough in an all-out cost-of-living crisis?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I will not be talking about the job of the Independent Reserve Bank. What I would say, Senator, is that the only people who are barracking for an interest rate increase are those opposite. Because you will always put self-interest. You will always put self-interest above the national interest. And in relation to fiscal policy, I would remind those opposite that we are on track to return a second surplus. You simply had to return some back-in-black mugs.
Senator Hume, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. After just 2 years under Labor, food is up 11.4%, housing up 14%, rents up 14.2%, electricity 21.5%, gas 22.2%, health 11.1%, education 10.9%, and financial and insurance up 16.2%. You've spent an additional $30,000 per household with nothing to show for it except stubborn, homegrown inflation and rising rates. Why do you say, Minister, what do you say to Australians who say you are to blame for your government's deteriorating standard of—
Senator Hume, before I order. Senator Hume, I called the time had expired twice, and you continued with your question. Senator Hume, you're not in a debate with me. Minister Wong.
Thank you. I think what is really interesting about the political attack that we just witnessed is that in relation to so many— Order.
Minister Wong, please continue.
Is that so many of the measures that we have put in place to seek to deliver cost of living—
Order. Senator Henderson. I hope that I'm not going to spend the entire question time calling particular senators to order. If I call order, it includes every single senator in this place. Have some respect. Minister Wong, please continue.
In relation to the cost of living pressures that the senator went through, the senator is on the team that has voted against almost every single one of the measures designed to deliver cost of living relief to Australians. You have opposed the measures we have put in place to deliver more bulk billing and cheaper medicines. You have opposed the measures we have delivered to try and increase the supply of housing. And on electricity, you have opposed the relief for Australians, and you are proposing the most expensive form of energy there is.
Thank you,
that
Minister.
is your response to cost of living.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Walsh.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Cost of living is the #1 issue I hear from constituents about, and the #1 priority of the Albanese Labor government. I'm worried to see those opposites breaking policies that experts say will drive up prices, including nuclear reactors and supermarket divestiture, without any plan to actually provide effective relief now. Can the Minister outline what the Albanese government's approach is to providing cost of living relief now, putting downward pressure on inflation and setting Australia up for the future?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, and thank you to Senator Walsh for the question. And she, like every member of our caucus, understands that Australians are under pressure, which is why we have made helping all Australians with the cost of living our priority. So from 1st of July this year, we have a tax cut for every Australian taxpayer, not just some as you wanted. $300 of energy bill relief, which you opposed. A freeze on the cost of PBS medicine for every Australian, again not supported by you. A third consecutive pay rise for 2.6 million workers, opposed by the party who believe that low wages should be a deliberate design feature of the Australian economy. More funding to build homes in every part of this country, also opposed. Increase to paid parental leave. And that is on top, as I said before, of Labor delivering cheaper childcare and HECS relief for everyone with student debt, fee-free TAFE, and the biggest investment ever at expanding bulk billing. What do those opposite have? What do those opposite have to offer Australians? Well, first, as I said, they want to adopt the Greens Party's policy on supermarkets. Greens Party's policy on supermarkets, which we know risk increasing prices that people pay at the checkout. And in addition, they want to adopt the most expensive form of electricity there is, nuclear reactors, which would not be operational until the 2040s, and they have no plan about what to do with supply between now and then. In relation to supermarkets, if I might return to that, I would just remind those opposite that the former ACCC Chair, Graham Samuel, said of Mr Dutton's policy, it is a, and I quote, disgrace and populist politics. A disgrace and populist politics. Mr Dutton, whether it's on nuclear or on supermarkets, has no answer on cost of living.
Senator Walsh, first supplementary.
Thank you, Minister, for that answer. And I'm proud to be part of the Albanese Labor government, which is working to support women from across the country. Can the minister please explain how women are better off under Labor's tax cuts than the plan proposed by those opposite?
Minister Wong.
Thank you. And I note that Senator Walsh spent a great deal of her working life advancing the cause of and wages and conditions of working women, and understands acutely the imperative of women's equality and financial security, an economic and social
Minister
imperative.
Wong, please resume your seat. Order on my left. Minister, please continue.
Thank you, President. Around 6.5 million working women from this week will pay less tax as a result of the government's policies.
Order.
And what they might not like to remember is 9 out of 10 of these women will get a bigger tax cut than what they were proposing to get under you. So when you want to talk about women's economic security, 9 out of 10 women would have been worse off under your tax policy. We're worse off under your policy. So let's remember which government, which party is actually delivering for working women. Who has never delivered for working women are those over there.
Expired. Order on my left again. Senator Walsh, second supplementary.
I thank the minister for that answer. Australia has a housing shortage, and experts are clear we need to build more homes to help with this issue, which is adding to cost of living pressure on renters and those wanting
Senator
to
Walsh,
buy a home.
Please resume your seat. Senator McKenzie, are you going under a different name? Because when I call your name, you don't respond. I'm going to ask Senator Walsh to start again, and I ask the clock be reset, and I ask for silence. Senator Walsh, please start the question again.
Australia has a housing shortage, and experts are clear we need to build more homes to help with this issue, which is adding to cost of living pressure on renters and those wanting to buy a home. Can the minister please update the Senate on what work the government is doing to help build more homes more quickly in every part of the country?
Thank you, Senator Walsh. Minister Wong.
After almost a decade of neglect under those opposite, we do have a housing shortage. We do. And we need to build more homes more quickly in more parts of the country. And
Senator
that is why the government has $32 billion in new housing initiatives in our comprehensive Homes for Australia plan. It includes an ambitious national goal of building 1.2 million homes by the end of the decade. What we know, of course, is what we have to deal with housing affordability, and the best way to deal with that is to increase supply and to ensure there are more affordable options for all Australians. Unfortunately, this is another area of policy where we have seen the extremes of the political spectrum, the Greens and the Coalition, line up together to prevent progress. Standing in the way of more help for Australians homebuyers through their continued opposition to so many aspects of our housing plan.
Expired. Senator Duniam.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Minister, Labor was elected on a promise to reduce household electricity bills by $275, but Australians are instead paying amongst the most expensive energy bills in the world. Labor has fallen short of its election commitment by up to $1,027 for everyday households, with many Australians living on a knife edge under Labor's cost of living crisis. We now see around 116,000 people on financial hardship arrangements with their energy retailer, which is a 59% increase since you came to government. With 90% of baseload electricity exiting the system over the next 10 years, the Albanese government can't even tell us how much their renewable plan will cost. Will you acknowledge that Labor has broken its promise to reduce electricity prices by $275 a year, and will you apologise for your broken promises and failed policies that are costing Australians so much more?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. The time for answering has expired. Senator Wong.
Mate, you should apologise for the irresponsibility of the energy policies that were entered into or failed to be entered into by those opposite.
Minister
24
Wong,
out of 28
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Minister Wong, please continue.
24 out of 28 coal-fired power stations announced their closure while you were in government. You had no plan to replace that supply, let alone increase supply for the growing population. No plan. And under your watch, we saw dispatchable energy, so energy generation, exit the system. No plan.
Order.
And now what you are proposing is more delay until—
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Order on my left. It is not okay, and in fact it's incredibly disrespectful to be in some kind of competition with the minister to yell louder. This is question time. Questions are asked and you are asked to listen in respectful silence. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. And now what the opposition are proposing is two things around electricity. One, we don't—
Senator Hume. Order. Minister Wong, please continue.
Now what you are proposing, apart from opposing energy bill relief, is a political strategy to put in place—
Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston, I just called for order and then I called you by name and you simply ignored me. That's disrespectful to me as the President. It is my job to keep order during question time, and when I ask for order, it should be granted and given and respected. Minister Wong.
Thank you. And now what you are proposing is the most expensive form of electricity that is possible in nuclear power. All you will tell Australians is that it will be a big bill. A big bill. There is a delay. Even if you went down this path, there is a delay until the 2040s. So we are very clear about the importance of this energy transition. We have to reduce emissions. We have to move to a much cleaner energy system. We have to increase renewables, and that is what we are doing. Those opposite, in their anti-renewables obsession, are simply going to seek, should they win government, to impose the most expensive form of energy, of electricity, on Australians, and they are asking Australians to pick up the tab. And they have the temerity to talk about the electricity prices.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Duniam, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Since Labor came to government just 2 years ago, electricity bills are up a staggering 21.5%. The Prime Minister promised to make life easier and reduce energy bills, but the truth is, after these 2 years, under his weak leadership, life has never been harder and electricity bills aren't coming down by $275 any time soon. Your so-called relief is just a one-off, and the RBA themselves have said prices will bounce right back. Won't Australians continue to pay more and be worse off under Labor?
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Order. Order. Minister Wong.
No, Australians would be worse off if a government sought to impose the most expensive energy there is on Australians and made them pick up the tab. I mean, let's be clear. That question is being asked by a member of Peter Dutton's front bench, with a party that is going to serve up the most expensive form of energy there is and ask Australians to pay for it. That is who that question is coming from. Now, it is true. Energy prices, electricity prices are really tough for so many Australians, and that is why it is so incomprehensible to Australians why those opposite would have opposed so much of the electricity price relief that this government sought to put in place. So people remember That question is being asked by somebody who wants Australians to pay
thank you,
higher
Minister.
prices.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Duniam, second supplementary.
Mr Albanese has ridiculed any attempt to consider alternative energy sources such as zero-emissions nuclear in Australia's future energy mix, instead insisting on an unproven renewables-only approach. Why should Australians have to pay the bill for the Prime Minister's reckless pig-headedness, which will only drive up energy bills?
That comment.
Withdrawn.
Thank you.
Which will only drive up energy bills higher and make our energy grid less secure and make it much harder to do business and create jobs in Australia.
Thank you, Senator Duniam. Order. 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 Minister Wong.
You know, what is pig-headed is to pursue a policy that will cost more without telling Australians how much it will cost, which is precisely what those opposite wish to do.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Hume, as I'm sure you are aware, personal reflections on senators or MPs is not in line with our standing orders. I viewed the comment made in Senator Duniam's question about the PM to be a personal reflection. However, Minister Wong has simply used that term. That term itself is not unparliamentary, but it is unparliamentary. Senator Hume, you are not in a debate with me. It is not unparliamentary if it's simply used without attaching it to a particular senator or MP. Thank you, Minister Wong.
Thank you. I'm always happy to withdraw if it assists, Senator, President, so I'm happy to withdraw. What I would say is this. Those opposite are supporting a policy which will impose the most expensive energy there is on Australians without telling them how much it will cost. Those opposite are more obsessed with being anti-renewables, than with ensuring that Australians have access to reliable, reasonably priced energy. Now, I know that those opposite don't like to be reminded of the facts, but it is the case that renewables are the cheapest form of new energy. Your ideological obsession against that cannot be supported.
Expired. Senator Steele-John.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Foreign Minister. The Albanese government has placed autonomous sanctions on a number of individuals and entities connected to a number of nations, including North Korea, Iran, Libya, Myanmar, the former Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, Russia, Syria and Zimbabwe. Despite the clear evidence provided in UN reports that war crimes have been perpetrated by the State of Israel, no sanctions have been placed on those responsible. Why hasn't the Australian government placed sanctions on individuals responsible for the State of Israel's war crimes?
Thank you, Senator Steele-John. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Thank you to Senator Steele-John for the question. As the senator knows, and he has advocated for sanctions on many people and many countries over these last couple of years, and I've given him the same answer every time, which is, as is long-standing practice, we do not speculate on sanctions. What I would say, however, is that I have also made clear, unlike the opposition, our continued support for international law and our support for the international tribunals of the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice. We think that those are the appropriate tribunals for assuring the observance of relevant international law. This is, and we have seen it today in our parliament, this is a conflict which has seen 40,000 plus Palestinians, men, women and children, die. A conflict that commenced on October 7 with the greatest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust. It is a conflict which has touched people deeply, across this country. It has touched all of us deeply. It is distressing. What I would say to you, Senator, and to all senators is what I said at the statement at the outset. We have an obligation in this place to try and ensure that we work for peace in the Middle East and that we do not seek to bring the conflict here. That is an obligation upon everybody in this place. We will continue to do all that we can to work for peace in the Middle East for both Palestinians and Israelis.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Steele-John, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, multiple countries, including the US, the UK, France and Canada, have imposed sanctions on illegal Israeli settlers in the West Bank. Why is the Australian government so out of step with our allies in our decision not to do the same?
Thank you, Senator Steele-John. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator. I'll make 2 points. First, in relation to sanctions, again, we don't speculate on sanctions, but I've said publicly that any extremist settler will not be granted a visa to come to Australia. It does give me the opportunity, though, to remind you of the various ways in which we have been clear about our opposition to settlements. This government has made clear that settlements are are contrary to international law. We have been very clear with Israel directly about our deep concern with settlements. I note reports in international media today about Israel's decision in recent months to approve new settlement construction and to seize territory in the West Bank. We object to these decisions and we call for these decisions to be reversed. Not only are settlements illegal under international law, they are a significant obstacle to peace and a two-state solution.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Steele-John, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Previously, when asked about autonomous sanctions placed upon Israel and its government members, you have said that it is a matter for relevant international tribunals. But in other conflicts, you haven't, in fact, waited for international rulings before imposing autonomous sanctions. How do you justify this clear double standard?
Thank you, Senator Steele-John. Minister Wong.
Senator, there is no double standard. I have been clear that I will not speculate on sanctions whenever you have asked me, and you've asked me a lot, not just in relation to this country but in relation to others. We don't speculate on sanctions. There's a separate issue about respect for the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court. I note that this is not something on which the opposition agree. I have said, and I appreciate that there are people who may not agree with this, you don't pick and choose on international law. You can't argue that the law of the sea in the South China Sea should be respected, but at the same time oppose the application of international law through those tribunals, as difficult as it may be, as difficult and as confronting as it may be. And that will remain at the principal position that the Albanese Labor government takes.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Green.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government, Senator Watt. Cost of living is top of mind for Queenslanders, with energy affordability one of their key concerns. A recently released plan by the Australian Energy Market Operator confirmed that the Albanese Labor government's Reliable, Renewable plan is the only plan supported by experts to deliver cheap, clean and reliable energy system to Australian households and businesses. How will the Albanese Labor government's clean, cheap and reliable renewable plan provide more affordable energy and secure jobs in our regions?
Thank you, Senator Green. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you very much, Senator Green, for that question. The Albanese Labor government is delivering for every Australian because we are a government for all Australians. And that's why, from this week, we're taking $300 off the power bill of every Australian household, including those who live in regional areas. Our reliable renewables plan is the only plan supported by experts to deliver the clean, cheap, reliable and resilient energy systems that Australians deserve. Under Labor, we've had a 25% increase in renewables in the national grid, and we've greenlit more than 50 renewable projects, enough to power 3 million homes. Reliable renewables are the cheapest form of energy, and getting more renewables in our power system is bringing prices down. And that's why Labor opposes Mr Dutton's risky, expensive nuclear reactor plan that guarantees more expensive power in 20 years' time and blackouts in the meantime. But it turns out it's not just Labor that opposes Mr Dutton's plan. It seems that many within the Queensland LNP rank and file also oppose it. The Australian newspaper had an article today titled "Nuclear Sidelined at LNP Unity Convention." The article reads, thank you, Senator Still, the article reads, the Liberal National Party has snubbed any reference to nuclear energy across 173 resolutions up for debate at its final convention before the next Queensland and federal elections. Not one rank-and-file member of the LNP is prepared to back Mr Dutton's nuclear fantasy. Nothing from Senator McGrath, nothing from Senator McDonald, nothing from Senator Scarr, not even anything from our friend up the back, Senator Rennick, over there in Siberia. 173 resolutions and not a single one supporting a nuclear reactor next to the Great Artesian Basin.
Order.
The fact that not one LNP branch could bring themselves to support Peter Dutton's risky nuclear idea shows what they think of this policy. They know it's divisive and they know it will jack up power prices.
Thank you, Minister Watt. Senator Green, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. The EMO plan shows that a renewable-powered grid is the most efficient and affordable energy option
Senator
for Australia
McKenzie.
and does not envisage a role of nuclear in Australia's energy future. I note that this view is shared by a majority of states and territories, including the leader of the Liberal and National Party in Queensland, David Crisafulli, who today confirmed that nuclear is not on the LNP agenda. Why are renewables the best option to power regional Australia, and what would be the impact on regions by an alternative energy plan?
Senator Green. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Green. The simple fact is that if Mr Dutton can't convince his own members to support nuclear power, why should he expect Queenslanders to support him as well? Mr Dutton's deeply divisive and nuclear policy is not only being stubbed by LNP branch members, it's being panned by the state leader of the opposition, David Crisafulli, who says it's not on his agenda. And I noticed that Deb Frecklington, the Shadow Energy Minister in Queensland, who also happens to be the member for the electorate covering the Toorong Power Station, she says she firmly opposes the federal opposition's plan to convert Toorong Power Station into a nuclear plant. In fact, it's get worse. Mr James Lister, the member for Southern Downs, about nuclear. Why would I prioritise it over the fight right now to fix the hospitals and the roads, to build more houses and dams and lock up the crooks? The nuclear war is set to explode at this weekend's LNP state conference. If Peter Dutton can't get his own members to support nuclear power, why should he expect Queenslanders to back him as well?
Thank you, Senator Watt. Second supplementary. Senator Green.
Thanks, President. I do note the reporting in the Australian Today stating that the Queensland LNP has excluded any reference to nuclear energy across 173 resolutions for debate at their state convention this weekend. Minister, like all Australians, Queenslanders want clean, cheap and reliable energy. Why are renewables the best option to future-proof energy supply and jobs in the regions?
Thank you, Senator McKenzie. When you're quiet, I will call the minister. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Green, and you're exactly right. Queenslanders do want cleaner, cheaper and more reliable power, and that's what hard-working Queenslanders are getting from the Albanese and Miles governments. But I do have to give some credit also to the work ethic of the branch members of the LNP over the last few weeks. As I say, 173 resolutions for their state conference this weekend, and let me tell you, there are some absolute doozies in there. There's a motion to ban Indigenous flags at press conferences. That'll do a lot to help cost of living issues. There's the old classic, a motion to sell the ABC, because we know privatisation in the media market goes so well. And we have a new classic, a motion to abolish the mandatory medical certificate for drivers over the age of 75. LNP members in Queensland thought it was more important to remove medical certificates for elderly drivers than to support Mr Dutton's risky nuclear policy for Queensland. That's because even LNP members know that more nuclear means more high power prices and more blackouts.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Tyrrell.
President, appreciate it. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for the National Disability Insurance Scheme, Senator Gallagher. Autism Tasmania and Disability Voices Tasmania shut their doors this week as a result of federal funding cuts. Staff have been immediately let go, and the Tasmanians who relied on these services have been left devastated by the sudden closures. Why was funding cut for these important services without any warning or transition period?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President, and I thank Senator Tyrrell for the question and her interest in the National Disability Insurance Scheme. I will come back to the Senator with more information if I can. I'm not specifically aware of the organisation you speak of, but from the Minister, as Minister for Finance, we have been increasing funding to the NDIS every year to meet some of the increasing costs around the scheme. We know from the way the scheme operates that individuals get a package and then they contract that package with providers, and that has at times meant that providers have been, the viability of providers has been more difficult than it has been in the past. But I am not aware of funding cuts to the NDIS. We have been providing extra money every year, and we will continue. We will continue to.
Order. Senator Hughes and Senator Reynolds. Order.
Well, that is not true.
Minister, please resume your seat. Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Reynolds and Senator Hughes, I called both of you twice, and then one of you went further and banged the table. Once again, incredibly disrespectful. If I call you to order, come to order. Senator Hughes. Order. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. We have factored into the budget changes that come with NDIS legislation, which has not passed this parliament, and it is about slowing the growth of the NDIS, the extra investment that's required. We need to ensure that the NDIS grows at a sustainable rate in the order of 8%. That will still be, outside of the interest that we're paying off your debt, that will be the fastest-growing government program across the Commonwealth. It is growing faster than health, faster than defence, faster than aged care. And if those opposite think that you can just continue to grow a program like that without any consequence, they are wrong. In terms of the organisation in Tasmania, Senator Tyrrell, I'm happy to look at it and come back to you if there's any further information.
Senator Hughes and Senator Reynolds, again, I ask you to listen in respectful silence, and when I call for order, don't disrespect me. This is Senator Tyrrell's question. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Getting the NDIS Back on Track bill says states and territories will be expected to fund foundational supports. Did you cut funding to these services as part of this new NDIS strategy, which isn't actually in play yet, and there's this huge lag?
No, I haven't called you, Minister. Sorry. I'm going to ask for silence, Senator Hughes. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. Well, the foundational supports program, which we are talking to the states about, is about ensuring that there are programs that sit outside the NDIS.
Minister Gallagher, please resume your seat. Senator Ayres.
President, I think it would assist the chamber if you are able to advise. If you're able to advise the people who have come to the parliament, who are in the gallery, that babies are welcome in this parliament, whether they make a little bit of noise or not. You are very, very welcome, and I think it would assist members in the gallery if you're able to do that.
I'm sorry, Senator. Order. 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 As I understand it, one of the staff— Order. As I understand it, one of the security staff misunderstood the rules. I'm sure that the security officer has been involved. told that babies are welcome on the floor of the chamber and in the gallery. Minister Gallagher, please continue your question.
On the issue of foundation supports, we are looking to work with the states and territories to set up foundation supports. And do you know why? Because we want to make sure that for people who don't get in through the NDIS have some services like they used to exist. They used to be services that sat outside the NDIS, at more high levels of support, like therapy centres and early intervention centres that no longer exist because those services were withdrawn when the NDIS came into being, and that has left a gap. And so we are working with the states and territories on that. We will continue to do so. We've put some money in the budget to establish that, and we'll continue to work with states and territories on it. But it's actually about providing more options for support for children in particular with a disability to make sure that they get the best chance they can at the earliest opportunity.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. I hear that answer, but the problem is that the people that had those services have not been kept informed. So what do you have to say to the Tasmanians who relied on these services and are now left with no alternatives and no actual answers?
Minister Gallagher.
Well, again, I'm not aware of the specifics of the organisations that you refer to. I'm told that under the linkages and capacity building funding announced in early June, we'll see millions of dollars flow to Tasmanian community organisations that deliver projects for people with a disability, their carers and families, over $3.5 million, and it will build on other projects there are. But I would urge those organisations to get in contact with the Minister's office if they haven't already, and I'm sure he will provide some information for them, and I'm happy to follow that up as well.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Mackenzie.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. This week, Senator Payman claimed she'd been exiled and intimidated by Labor parliamentarians. Minister, have you or the Labor leadership raised any concerns with the Parliamentary Workplace Support Service or taken any action to ensure Senator Payman is aware of her rights to have such allegations independently investigated?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Yes, I and others did inquire as to whether or not Senator Payman had been engaging with PWSS. I won't. It's a matter for her private business as to whether that was taken up. And yes, I and others have inquired as to her welfare.
Senator Mackenzie, first supplementary.
The Minister has been repeatedly defied and humiliated by Senator Payman. His belated and feeble efforts to impose some form of discipline has spectacularly failed. If the Prime Minister cannot bring himself to act decisively, effectively and with strength within his own government, how can the Australian people trust him to act with strength and decisiveness on issues of importance to our nation?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Order. 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 Minister Wong.
The Prime Minister has sought to act with restraint. The Prime Minister has sought to act with understanding. To my way of thinking, those are qualities associated with leadership. Yep. With leadership and with strength. I regret that Senator Mackenzie is taking such an approach in relation to this matter.
Senator Mackenzie, second supplementary.
Former Labor Senator Graham Richardson described the Prime Minister's first attempt at punishment of Senator Payman like this: "I thought it was very weak. I think Albo's made a mistake on this." Hasn't this critique been proven right, that Mr Albanese's response was weak and has been proven to be a giant mistake, given the Prime Minister hasn't been able to convince his own party to take his authority seriously and has been so comprehensively outplayed by Senator Payman? How can anyone else be expected to take him seriously?
Thank you, Senator Mackenzie. Order. 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 Senators, order across the chamber. Senator Mackenzie, order. Order. Senator Hanson-Young, I've called order. Senator Mackenzie, order. 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 Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator. What I would say to you is the Prime Minister has acted always to advance the cause of Labor and to ensure that the government's agenda continues to be implemented. But I want to make I want to respond on the point about collective decision-making. We believe on this side of the chamber that collective decision-making is about the group being more powerful, more wise than any one individual. And I would say to this chamber that that truth is demonstrated by the history of this nation. The progress that Labor has delivered on Medicare, minimum wage, social welfare, paid parental leave, superannuation, the Sex Discrimination Act, the Racial Discrimination Act, the abolition of the White Australia policy, Mabo, land rights and the removal of discrimination against LGBT Australians.
Thank you, Minister. Time. Thank you. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. President, my question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. Minister, in the wake of the Hamas terrorist attacks of 7 October, the Labor Party joined with the coalition in a bipartisan motion recognising Israel's inherent right to defend itself. Does the Albanese government still recognise Israel's inherent right to self-defence, whether attacked by Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran or any other sponsor of terrorism?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I have, and as has the Labor Party and the Labor government, been very clear about the imperative for the continued existence for the State of Israel and our support for a two-state solution. We've been very clear about that. Every state, including Israel, has a right to defend itself. However, as I have repeatedly made clear, that right is not without limits, and those limits, those rules apply to Israel, to Australia, to all states under international law. I assume that the Leader of the Opposition is making reference to Hezbollah and Lebanon. I would make this point. From the beginning, we have been clear and consistent that we want all parties to exercise restraint. From the beginning, we have been clear and consistent that we do not want to see the conflict spreading to other parts of the region, including Lebanon. If the conflict spreads, it would be devastating for the whole region, for Israel, for Lebanon, for the thousands of Australians in Lebanon, and for the region. We want a ceasefire, protection of civilians, the return of hostages, a diplomatic solution, and we want all parties to exercise restraint.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Birmingham, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. President, I refer the Minister to extraordinary media revelations today that reveal you summoned the Israeli ambassador to Australia to a meeting where, in what appears to be a calculated insult, you then delegated your junior minister to tell him that the Albanese government would not stand with Israel in a conflict with terrorist group Hezbollah. Why have you acted in such an insulting way, and why does the Albanese government continue to turn its back on Israel?
Senator, thank you. Minister Wong.
2 weeks ago, as a result of a series of devastating strikes that caused major civilian casualties, including near refugee camps and aid facilities, and following an escalation in rhetoric and action between Israel and Hezbollah, I instructed the Assistant Foreign Minister to call in the Israeli ambassador. I can confirm the meeting took place, but unlike the Morrison government, we do not leak private conversations, and if others wish to do that, that is a matter for them.
Order.
Our message is the same wherever we go, with everyone and everyone we talk to. Ceasefire, protection of civilians, return of hostages, diplomatic solution. Since the conflict began, as I said, we have called for restraint from all parties. This is what we advocate on behalf of Australia, and when I and my colleagues act and speak, we do so on behalf of the country, not for any other country. We act and speak on behalf of Australia, and I think Australians want peace, not more conflict and not more civilian deaths.
Thank you, Minister.